All right. So this is what I've been wanting to do. This is just the test version of this. I'm going to start off with something that I'm comfortable with personally because this is a very important uh, universe to me. Um, I love the Star Wars universe a lot, and I am very fixated on it for some reason. I just grew up with it and kind of just fell in love with it. Remember watching the original trilogy. And then, like, The Phantom Menace came out the year before I was born. I know, I'm young. And I couldn't, I think my parents didn't really want me watching the prequel trilogy when I was younger for some reason. I don't really know. I think the uh, Revenge of the Sith was like something that they thought was particularly violent and did not want me to be watching violent things because my parents were, well, particularly my mom was very much, uh, she was very vigilant about what we watched as kids, me and my sisters. But I don't know. I watched the Star Wars movies in order of release growing up, which I don't know that I don't think in any way it was intentional on my parents' part. I don't know if they were even giving a shit because they don't really care about Star Wars that much. But I do. And today we're going to watch The Phantom Menace. Um, it's on Disney Plus, obviously, because Disney owns Lucasfilm. I'm going to start it. It's not, I haven't pressed play yet. I'm still in the menu. So if you want to listen along with me or watch along with me and listen to me schizo rant about this shit for the next 2 hours and 17 minutes, um, you go ahead and press play in three, two, one. Classic, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. The words that have basically changed a lot of people's lives. And now with the new Ahsoka series, a lot of people are like, "Oh shit, this is just Hu Yang." Um, Telling this to a bunch of new younglings, which I kind of like that idea. It's pretty funny little like meta thing. The Phantom Menace is obviously it's been memed to all hell. So is all of the rest of the prequel trilogy. But like the Phantom Menace particularly has been shit on for having too much politics. And then like what Episode two kind of got away from the politics a little bit, and it was very much like, hey, this is the fucking war part, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Um, I like the Phantom Menace a lot. Not number one movie for me. I'm not original again. I am one of those people that is like, hey, Empire Strikes Back is the best one. It is the best one because like it's still got the practical effects. I like the whole we didn't win thing. You know, the good guys didn't win. I don't know why. I think it's something that the sequel trilogy didn't really do that great. Like, yeah, they didn't win either in uh, episode 8, but like, episode 8 is fucking garbage. These guys. The Trade Federation, Newt Gunray, god damn, was George Lucas on some other shit with this. But That's the whole like thing about the aliens in Star Wars that I think is actually kind of cool, but also kind of like weird is the uh, racial stereotypes, kind of. Like, I don't think he was in any way trying to make it racist, excuse me, but the different races having, different alien races having different and unique uh, accents is something that I found very interesting. It's like, hey, these people are from a certain part of the galaxy and they speak like this. And then you get these guys. Qui Gon was born on Coruscant and he lived on Coruscant his entire life, right? So he has the very like highfalutin British accent, like Tarkin, you know? And that was like the whole you're an upper class human is you have a British accent. And then I think Obi-Wan is from a core world, Stew John, which is like Jon Stewart or George Lucas was on Jon Stewart's show or whatever, and he was like, "Where's Obi-Wan from?" And he came up with he was like, "I'm gonna fuck with this dude and use his name to create a planet." And so now it's canon. Stew John is where Obi-Wan was born, and apparently he had a brother. I feel really bad for Obi-Wan personally. Like that guy, his character's gone through the most. His spoilers, his master dies, and then he is immediately thrust into the position of having an apprentice that he didn't sign up for. Like he's still a Padawan. He's like in his 20s, so he's a late bloomer. But he's also a very hardworking guy, and the Jedi Order is everything to him. And that is the only reason why, like, when you get into the relationship between he and Satine, like, they both loved each other. Like, that is a definite thing, because she knew that the Jedi Order is something that he loved so much, or like it gave him so much purpose, and that was like his entire identity was being a Jedi, and she loved him so much that she didn't want to take that away from him and be selfish. And that's so sweet, but also like, dude, I listened to some Star Wars fan fiction on YouTube, and like, I know I'm weird. I'm that kind of weird. But like, if he would have left for her, like, who knows? Maybe the entire thing would, the entire sequence of events would be entirely different. Like Qui Gon might have a different Padawan right now, and he'd be, or he or she would be with him on this occasion, and maybe they would have fought Maul, and both of them would have lost, and then what about Anakin, huh? He probably maybe would have been trained by a different Jedi Master, because they were like, oh fuck, Qui-Gon really wanted this kid, and so it was his dying wish or whatever. But who knows? Yeah. The lightsaber fights, going from the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy, I love how George Lucas was like, hey, let's make it to where this is the height of their power and they're able to do all this acrobatic shit. And like, the technology of graphics is better for lightsabers, yes. However, some of these sets fucking suck, dude. Like this right here, dude. Not great. Not bad. Like, when it's CGI characters on the CGI background, you can't really tell, but like, and some of these sets are actual practical sets. That's fucking goofy. The whole like Jedi sprinting thing, where they basically like phase out of existence. Where did that power go? How many times would that have helped? They would have helped later on in the movie. Like, you can't address, or you can't introduce a power and then later on when they could use that power to, I don't know, fight uh, Darth Maul together instead of alone. I don't know. I'm just saying. Again, not an original thought. I'm sure somebody else has thought that. The negotiations were short. Yes. Snarky. I love Snarky. Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is probably one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And again, I feel so bad for the guy. His master dies, he gets put into a position that he is not prepared for, and ultimately he blames himself for the fall of Anakin Skywalker and the creation of Darth Vader, the death of Padme. He probably feels like it was somewhat his fault, the fall of the entire Galactic Republic and turning it into an empire, which, like, not having that context in 1977, but having it now completely changes the story for me. Like, having watched the original series first, or the original trilogy first, and then come back to the prequels. Like, obviously, as a kid, I wasn't thinking about this shit, but, like, as I've grown up, I. Sorry, this is goofy. This looks not particularly great. The inside, this is an actual place, you know? But, like, the outside, it's just like it kind of looks rubbery, if that makes any sense. Thick Palpatine. Let's hand it to Palpatine. Communications must mean one thing, and vision. Yeah. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I like the prequels for the fact that they enrich the story, and also that was something that was great about the Clone Wars series, the animated series that was on Cartoon Network and then Netflix, and then the last season on Disney Plus was like, it gave a lot of extra information that you wouldn't have known otherwise, and it enriches the story. The sequel trilogy, however, just doesn't add anything. It is just, it's bullshit. I fucking hate the sequel trilogy, and again, not a single original thought in my head. I'm not the only one that dislikes them. The majority of, I guess, the mass consensus is that the sequel trilogy kind of ruined Star Wars, and that's not to say that there isn't good things in the sequel trilogy. Like, the acting is good, for the most part, I guess. Like, Adam Driver is a great lead man. I think they should have doubled down after The Last Jedi on him being bad. Like, I don't think Ben should have gotten a redemption arc at that point, and I feel like that would have made The Rise of Skywalker that much better. And it shouldn't have been called The Rise of Skywalker, and Rey shouldn't have been a Palpatine. Anyways, those are like the two things that I feel like it would have at least been serviceable in the end. But yeah, here's the introduction of Jar Jar, by the way. Um, a lot of people didn't like that character, and so the actor Ahmed Best got a lot of hate, and now everybody loves this guy. I am not saying it's not deserved, because uh, his character in the Kenobi series that saves Grogu, so badass, dude. Like, I think that's the one of the best things that came out of the Kenobi series. Again, that's another thing that Disney mishandled, was that character. There wasn't anything really new going on with that. You know that we now know that he went on a little escapade with little Leia, but other than that, it's just like, I don't feel like it was that important of a story to tell. Yeah, the CGI, like, especially in this one, he looks Jar Jar looks so fucking rubbery. Yeah, props to Ewan McGregor and uh fuck brain fart. What am I trying to say? Props to them for acting with like I guess nobody there. I think Ahmed Best was standing in. Um, but why can I not remember his name? Liam Neeson. I had to go to IMDb. Really, I'm the worst. I could remember Ahmed Best's name, but I couldn't remember Liam Neeson's name. How weird is that? That it's not obscure, but like, do you know who Ahmed Best is? You know, off the top of your head. But Liam Neeson, he's fucking taken. You know. Anyways, this is pretty cool. Very interesting idea of having an underwater city. Um, this is very Ralph McQuarrie for sure, and I think the prequels definitely had a more concerted effort to kind of push that art style more than the original trilogy did. They were working with what they had essentially. They had to do most of their shit practically and with the big like matte paintings, you know, and so it couldn't be that uh like specific art style like they're able to do with the 3D modeling. Also, the Gungan's speech pattern is just so weird. I don't think it's necessary that they are that over the top in how they speak. Also, Qui Gon Jinn, uh, a great diplomat. Yeah, both Obi Wan and Qui Gon were the best negotiators that I think the Jedi Order probably had, which is great. Like I wish that there was more of this. I'm glad we got a little bit of like the dynamic between Dooku and Qui Gon in the Tales of the Jedi mini series, where it was like the it showed how Ahsoka was kind of discovered by Plo Koon, and um, how like her very early life as an infant went, and then also the whole thing with Yaddle and Dooku have already being turned to the dark side. Well, not necessarily at that point. I don't think he was like fully on board with the Sith at any point. I think that he highly disagreed, and Qui Gon too. Like it rubbed off on Qui Gon a bit with the whole disagreeing of how stagnant the Jedi had become, and I understand I understand where the whole dynamic of Yoda being the Grand Master of the Order for I don't know exactly how long, but a very long time, like lifetimes. He was on that seat for way too long, and that is such a real thing in like real life politics is that you have these people that sit in certain positions for way longer than they should, and they just become disconnected from the real world, like the struggles of the everyday person. And I mean, it doesn't help that Palpatine was manipulating a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, and then the Clone Wars kind of made them, it distracted them from other problems because I mean, it is a war, and there are atrocities that are happening. I don't think that the Jedi should have gotten involved the way that they were, where they become generals. I feel like that leading an army is not part of the code, right? And so there's that cognitive dissonance again, where it's like, you guys are saying that we have to uphold the Jedi code and all this, but then it's rules for the end, not for me, because Anakin gets into a romantic relationship and he's afraid to say anything about it because it's not the Jedi way. Even though being a warrior is not the Jedi way, you shouldn't be fighting in a war. If they were like, uh, they just became so inextricably connected with the Republic that they got stuck in a position where they made themselves, uh, what do you call it? They trapped themselves in that. You know, if they were like humanitarian aid and kind of separated themselves from either side and just independently went to any world that was having issues from either side, where it was like, this place is war torn because there is just a war going on, not even like the subjugation of people by the separatists, like just the fact that it's a war torn world, so we're gonna provide humanitarian aid to these people. And then they would have also been able to focus like on the outer rim where there's slavery going on, and that would have made Anakin probably less susceptible to the influence of Palpatine. He probably wouldn't have been interacting with Palpatine at all either. I don't know. It's just weird rant. Also, they're going through the core of the planet. Bro, how does that work? It's science fiction, man. Yeah. I missed the always a bigger fish meme. I was ranting. George got a point. He's just anxiety riddled. Knocked him out. There's the bigger fish. Yep. That thing was eating good today, man. It's so funny. Obi-Wan is forced to drive and he hates flying. I mean, they're in a submarine. It's different, but I think it might kind of still kind of be the same thing, maybe. God, I love that outfit. That's so cool. I had the Blu-ray case for both trilogies, and there was a really cool like behind the scenes thing where it gave you a lot of um, 360-degree view of different costumes and miniatures that were used. Because a lot of this stuff is miniatures. This, you can see some of that stuff in the background is like 3D model assets. And this is real, other than the droids. But, you know, Newt Gunray is a costume and an animatronic head, you know. Also, an outfit change from one scene to the next. Like, you had time for that? I know that it's this is Keira Knightley's character, her body double, and then there's Padme back right there next to Panaka. Um, and so it was probably like, I gotta just dress down and be a servant girl, and my body double's already in a different fucking outfit. So I don't know. If you're paying attention, you probably would have been able to figure that out. If this is your first time viewing, it's like, why did she change? That's weird. And then it's like, oh, body double. That makes sense. So, also, I wish that the droids um, had the voices that they have. Like, they have different voices from droid to droid. Oh, yeah, yeah, lovely. Um, what was I saying? The droids and their voices. They have different voices in this. They're like the single control computer in the Luger Hulk at this point, and then later on they have the independent. But in the show, Matt Wood does the same voice for every single one. And I wish there was like a pitch change. Matt Wood, awesome by the way. He still works on Star Wars. Like I've seen his name in the credits of definitely the Kenobi show. I think the Ahsoka show as well. But yeah. No. The balls. Just strolling up like, yep, we're out of here. No, I'm not. Do these pilots all get off with them? Yeah, they all go together. Oh no, no, no. There's some that run. It's like five guys. There's some guys that got on the ship with them. So like, I don't know. There's our two. Hello, boyos. This movie doesn't actually take that long to get going. You know, it's got action, and then it doesn't, and then it's got action, and then it doesn't. I had that blue and yellow astromech when I was a kid. It was just like a little tiny, like 2 and 3 inch. Yeah, that one that just got blasted away. I had that one, and then those little the little charging stations that they had. I had like a little figurine of that, and I wanted R2 because it's fucking R2, man. But still, I don't know why I thought about that. It was just a weird memory that came up. Yeah, main character energy from R2. He is the main character of Star Wars. Period. Fuck you, Anakin. Fuck you, Luke. R2 is the main character. So I don't know like the quote unquote geography of the um, galaxy, the Star Wars galaxy, is weird to me, and that's because there's like a lot of wishy washy, like hyperspace being kind of a plot device, where it's like it just you get from point A to point B in arbitrary amount of time. It's weird, but Naboo is like a outer rim world, I guess. I don't know. This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. Yeah, no shit. I feel like she's fucking with her. She's like, "Hey, Queen Amidala, go clean this fucking droid." Also, that's a pretty interesting thing to think about. Is she probably never really interacted with the Gungans, and she's queen of the planet. There's a lot of like other kind of politics that aren't talked about in a very politically heavy movie, even though like that doesn't really show up until later. On one hand, I get like that is smart about not sending transmissions because they can be traced, but it's also like you need to communicate why instead of just being like because I said so. I don't know why Jar Jar went with them. I feel like that's an even worse idea. Icky, icky goo. You stepped in shit, Jar Jar. That's what you did. I think the reason why that, like, the dewback right there doesn't work the best is, like, the shadows kind of, they're not darker where they should be. Yeah, why did you bring him? it's a bad idea to bring fucking Padme along, but it's so an okay idea to bring Jar Jar. Kicked him in the nuts. No, they won't. My tricks don't work on me. Only money. Yeah. That eat shit grin. Yeah, there's too much of the slapstick shit from Jar Jar, unfortunately. Yeah, that's what I like about Qui Gon and his view of the Force is that he's just like, shit'll work out. He's so chill. Quinlan Voss, the guy with the yellow stripe on his nose. He shows up later on in like the Clone Wars, and I think in the canon of what he was like undercover investigating the huts here. So he was not allowed to intervene. I wonder if Qui Gon noticed him and didn't say anything. I don't know. Probably. There's probably like something on that where it's like they knew who each other were, but they both knew like we shouldn't fucking interact with each other, and that's why they don't. Even though like whenever the movie was made, that's not what was happening, but retcons and such. Me too, Grandma. Yeah. Also, I feel like the time that was spent on Tatooine was a little bit too much. Like the whole pod race. I get that they're trying to show off that Anakin's a good pilot, but it could have been cut down a little bit. Um, the dialogue's clunky, but George Lucas has never been great at writing dialogue. I do like this puppet a lot. It's very nice. It's just a bunch of cables and a framework, kind of. It's very cool. The sets are great. Like the actual real sets that they have instead of just like the blue screen areas are great. There's a lot of just a bunch of background detail in a lot of them, and they're very well set dressed. But like, I don't know, there's some that are just like jarring to look at because can't you know that they're not real. You can't really suspend your disbelief with some of them. This is though like that's definitely how a kid talks. I will say that. It's like hey, this is the thing that I'm interested in. You should be interested in it too. Let me tell you about it. Except you don't, you dick. By complete accident. He is a smart kid, but it's also like all this is so very convenient. And I get it's supposed to be like the force working to make things happen, but it's also like, is it? Because if the force was working to make things happen, I guess Palpatine wouldn't be able to fuck with a lot of stuff to make it to his advantage. I don't know. I also like the idea that Shmi is like aware of what the Force is, especially since you know they're not being a father and whatnot. She's like, "Hey, I kind of know what the deal is." Oh, but the Queen does know. Yeah, dude, what the fuck? What if it didn't work? What if Anakin didn't win? Like, they'd be so shit out of luck. He is taking a big risk. Yeah, he's hitting them good. I wonder what the backup plan would have been. It's just like get the fuck out of there without paying up. You know, burning bridges. He's gonna try. He's gonna do whatever he can. Even though that is kind of your job, Qui Gon. The Jedi are supposed to free slaves. Oh look, it's George Lucas's daughters. I am shaking my head right now because, ugh. And then he gets his hand stuck. How the fuck did Qui Gon know his name? I want to skip through a lot of this personally, but I know that it's just gonna be weird for the audio recording. Also, I'm very sorry that there's a lot of dead air, just silence for some of this. I don't feel like I have a lot to say in like what was happening right there with like his mom talking to Qui Gon and them fixing up the pod racer. It's just like there's not a lot to talk about with that. So yeah. Oh, don't you worry, Anakin. You're gonna see a lot of them. You're gonna get caught up in a war. Don't lie to him. Just say I'm checking your blood. I have a love hate relationship with the. Not even a love hate relationship. Just like part of me is like I don't know about the midichlorian thing, but another part of me is just like yeah, I don't really care. It it does make a little bit of sense. It's like there's an actual physical reason behind there being this superpower of the force, but at the same time, the philosophical kind of thing with the force that was kind of established in the original trilogy is like everybody has it. I feel like was kind of what the initial idea about it was. I don't know. Also, I love Darth Maul, and I feel like his character is also very tragic, to say the least. Um, he just held on to a bunch of bullshit, and he placed blame on Obi Wan. That is a big contributor of what I was talking about earlier with the Obi Wan being a very tragic and having a lot of bad shit happen to him. Because later on in this movie, he defeat Obi Wan defeats Maul, and like uh, Maul blames him like when he comes back for taking away the whole like future of being a successful Sith Lord and powerful person in the galaxy, right? He was like, I had a place in my master's plan, but the reality of the situation is that as soon as the as Palpatine found or had no use for Maul, he would have discarded him or killed him in one way or another. This is the same thing that he does with Dooku in Episode 3. Is like he sees that Anakin has lost a lot of trust in the Jedi Order and feels the darkness growing in him, and his knowledge of what happened with the Sand People in the next in Episode 2 is like I'm gonna put a lot. I've got a good bet about where this is gonna go for Anakin. I can manipulate the shit out of him, and he does. Ultimately, he does, right? But whenever Dooku's hands get cut off, and Palpatine says to Anakin to kill him, he's just shocked, and it's because he was just like, "Oh fuck, this was his plan all along," and he just can't say any, like none of the words can come out because it's just like your entire world has basically been shattered in front of you, and it's just a lot to take in all at once, and there's like no time to think or say anything. And even if he did say anything, what's to say Anakin believes him? Like Palpatine is Sidious. It's like, okay, what does that mean to me? Why should I even trust you? You've been my enemy for the last like 3 years. You cut off my arm. I don't like you. You've always been a bad guy. You're the leader of the Separatist Alliance. Like, why should I even believe you? I think this is also a miniature. And then the um, crowd is like Q-tips or something. They're like colored Q-tips. Not there, obviously. Oh shit, I forget that guy's name. The voice acts, but that guy that is voice acting that the announcer that's speaking in English, he also he's a comedian, I believe. And he also voices another character later on in the Clone Wars show. Um, Let me actually look that up because it's very interesting. Uh, IMDb is my best friend. Greg Proops. I don't know if he's actually. He does a lot of voice work. He might just be a voice actor. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, so in the Clone Wars, he voices Tal Merrick, who, like, basically, the character of Satine, um, who is Obi Wan's love interest. If you don't already know that. Spoilers for that. But he basically, like, holds her hostage. So Satine is a character that, in Obi Wan's backstory, like, Obi Wan and Qui Gon go to Mandalore whenever they have a civil war, and this is when Obi Wan is like, I want to say he's like a younger teenager, like 15 to 17 years old, somewhere around there. But Qui Gon gets basically uh, the whole like negotiation duty, which makes sense, seeing as how he's an adult and he's likely to be taken seriously. And then uh, Obi Wan gets put on bodyguard duty, similarly to how um, Anakin and Padme that relationship goes on, which is the whole like George Lucas. It's like poetry; it rhymes, shit, right? But like his master was put in a very similar situation, and so it would make sense for him to like think like, hey, I can essentially put him in the same situation. But yeah, Obi Wan and Satine were on the run from the one group of Mandalorians, and I think I'm pretty sure that that's actually what caused her to become a pacifist, and it like changed the whole way that the Mandalorian society was. Is like the people on Mandalore were mostly pacifists. Like there were some that obviously her guards were not uh, pacifists. They would fight and they would sometimes take the lives of other people, but it was more of a defense type thing, self defense and defense of Satine, who she eventually like her parents were like the way that the Mandalorians work is like they have clans and houses, and the house name has a lot of weight politically. But like her parents got killed, and they were trying to kill her. A bunch of the Mandalorians were trying to kill her, and so Obi-Wan and her went on the run, and they develop a romantic bond with each other. And but again, I think I was talking about it earlier, where Obi-Wan just like doesn't like she loves him enough to where she doesn't ask him to leave, and so he doesn't. And yeah, but what was I saying? The voice actor for the guy that I was just talking about, Poopy Head, uh, Greg Proops, voices a guy named Tal Merrick in the Clone Wars show, and um, I don't remember exactly the situation, but like Satine is going to Coruscant for political reasons. I don't remember exactly, but Tal Merrick is a guy who's trying to assassinate her, essentially, and basically like he's holding her at gunpoint hostage, and Obi-Wan can't really do anything. And then she is able to get the gun away from him, but he's got a bomb to blow up the ship that they're on. Anyways, she's like, she confesses that she loves him, and he does the whole like I know type thing, and he was like, had you said the word, I'd have left, and I like, damn, is that smooth? Like, I wish I had the same kind of, for lack of a better word, riz as there's Aura Singh. I wish I had the same kind of suave as Obi-Wan. Cause like, bro, imagine being in that situation where it's like a girl's professing her love for you, and it's like the only reason why you can't be together is because of your religion. You're just like, yeah, baby. If you'd have said something, I'd have left. I'd have left everything that I hold most important behind for you. It's just like, bro, that melts hearts. Yeah, the Sand People. I remember this shit on Lego Star Wars, bro. That was the most annoying fucking part of this race was getting shot at by the Tusken Raiders because you just randomly die, man. Yeah, Lego Star Wars was so fun when I was a kid. My older sister would always like in the earlier levels where you're on Naboo and you get Jar Jar Binks. She would always play as Jar Jar Binks, and I don't know why. I think Jar Jar Binks could jump higher than most characters too, which was I don't know why. It's weird. Little shit like that is funny to me. Like the subtle comedy. The whole like again the slapstick shit that uh Jar Jar does. It's a little bit too much. Like if there was a little less of it, I think it'd be bearable. Well, there's also like um to Anakin's credit, he wasn't wrong. Definitely is the fastest pod racer on the field. It's just if Sebulba didn't fuck with it, he would have gotten a good start, and he'd probably be leading by now. And he's a great pilot. I understand the purpose behind this sequence. It just feels like it goes on for too long, and there's a lot of that in this movie. Is there are things that just draw out for far too long. And it takes a lot of time to actually live up to the whole wars part of the Star Wars. You get the war, like a kind of a war. It's more like just an initial battle of this timeline of events that is at the very end of the movie, and it lasts for not a long time. Yeah, it's just there's not a lot of stuff going on right now, man. I feel like it's a whole lot of nothing. I guess it does sort of enrich the universe. It's like there's more to it than just wars going on. You know, there's fucking pod racing, and then in the next episode, there's like that bar scene whenever they're uh chasing down the chick Zamweasel, the chick that tried to kill Padme with the slugs. Um, like in the background, you can see a pod race on one of the TVs, and then like a droid football game or whatever the fuck. Like, see if it was more like that, where it's this shit is happening in the background, kind of. I feel like I would like that more because this is just plot. This isn't story. You know, there's some like it's not character development. It's more like it's just showing that he's a capable pilot and he's got a very strong connection in the force because he's able to, you know, do the whole pod racing thing. But again, it goes on for too long. I think this is funny though, just like as a contained thing where that shit that just fell off of the speeder, like, um, caused the smoke. And for a second, it was to Sebulba's detriment where he couldn't see shit. But then he just gets in front of him. Like, I would have liked it if it would have caused Sebulba to just like not be able to pass him, you know, because he can't see. I don't really remember how he gets back to getting in front of him. Is it because they get stuck together or something? It is building some kind of tension. It's like this is the last lap. It's just the two of them left in the race, and he fell behind again. Or is it the two of them? And is there another guy? No, it's just the two of them. I like the mirage effect. I do like that. It's pretty fun. yeah, they get stuck together, and then some fucking other thing happens, and it causes the bubble to crash. Mom is stressed out. I do like the explosion of and all the shit that comes off of it. It's great. That's funny. Yay. He won. Good job, Anakin. Oh, what I would give to be an extra in a Star Wars movie, man. I would love to be in a Star Wars movie or some kind of Star Wars project, like a show. Oh, look, Warwick Davis. You got Willow in my Star Wars movie. She's not a terrible actress, but she's not like the best actress either. I'm not trying to bag on her, but like her delivery is very clunky. The voice acting, I feel like for the like what do you call the CGI characters, like Watto particularly has a great voice actor and he's done very well. I like Liam Neeson's portrayal of Qui Gon, and it is very consistent throughout all of where he shows up in Star Wars. A very stoic man. He's just super fucking chill, but he's also cunning. You know, he played the fuck out of Watto. Kinda like all. Well, not really. Yeah, Obi Wan kind of is a little shit right there for that. Another pathetic life form. Like, dude, just because you're a Jedi doesn't mean you're better than everybody else, and you shouldn't think like that. It's not. It's about a storm outside. And then he realizes, what about my mom? Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. He did. I mean, yeah, Watto was a greedy bitch. Let's put my fuzzy thing back on. I don't know if there's that was like a lot of noise just then. It was. Oops. I'll listen back to this later. An hour, like an hour 15. Okay. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'm gonna keep this recording so I don't have to. It'll just continue to play. There's not really a lot going on anyway right now. I'm back. I think I may have missed. No, that's not. That. What I'm thinking about is something that was on the cover art of the box, where it was him next to like one of the sand hut dome things, and it was like his shadow, and it was because of his bowl haircut, right? He looked like he was Darth Vader, but actually that's from, well, it was that cover art, but there is a scene in episode 2 where that happens, where it actually does happen in the movie, but it was a kind of an accident where um oh, this is funny though. Maul was like, I don't even know who the fuck this kid is. I'm gonna run him over. I just want to kill this Jedi. He was like, fuck that kid. But for a first lightsaber duel, not bad. Um, it was pretty cool. It's also like, holy shit, there's a Sith. Um, what was I saying about episode 2? Yeah. Anakin was standing next to a hut, and this is Hayden Christensen, right? And because of the way that his hair was, it like cast a shadow that looked like Darth Vader's helmet. It was pretty cool. Also, bro, you kind of suck. it is weird that like he's like 9 and she's like 14 years old or something like that. But like it's only a 5 year difference. So like once they get to being in their 20s, you know, she's only 5 years older than them. It's different as a kid or like as a young adult where you're 5 years apart. There's a big difference, but like later on, not so much. And who the fuck doesn't like Ian McDermott? Um, I will say that he didn't belong in the sequel trilogy. Like Palpatine's character did not belong in the sequel trilogy. Again, I'm taking every chance that I get to rag on the sequels, but what he did do, I will say he ate up all that shit, and he was supposed to be like super over the top, and he fucking delivered. Also, the dynamic between, well, not dynamic because Valorum, Chancellor Valorum here, the guy on the right, doesn't know what Palpatine is doing behind the scenes, but he is just fucking over Chancellor Valorum every chance that he gets. He and also Plagueis, who's still alive at this point, though you never hear about him until, I love that little like, am I good to go? Like, what do I do? Very cute. Because he's a kid, and this is like so new to him. He has no idea what the fuck is going on. But yeah, Plagueis is still alive during this time period, and I think he kills or Palpatine kills him like after this episode, like during the end of the episode, or after he gets back from um what do you call it, Naboo at the end. So it's kind of like it's kind of between movies, but it's like right after this movie ends, essentially. I would like there to be at some point like it's probably gonna have to be like an animated thing because obviously Hayden Christensen's already in his like 40s, I believe, his late 40s maybe. I don't know, but he's not old. He's too old to be playing a young Anakin. I would like there to be like a teenager Anakin between this movie, like the 10-year gap between one and two. I feel like there should be some kind of story about him, like on in a medium that you can watch, because there's a comic I believe where there's a little bit of that where it's like he's training in the temple and he gets ostracized by a bunch of the other uh, Padawans and younglings. But it'd be nice to see some of that um, interaction and like the whole throwaway line on the elevator at the beginning, or not the very beginning, but like while Obi-Wan and Anakin are going up to see Padme, the whole like nest of Gundarks thing. I would like to personally, I'd like to see that. Look at fucking Yariel poof back there, fucking swinging his head back and forth. Depa Billaba and Ethkoth, and then that's Plo Koon and Ki-Adi Mundi, um, or shit, I don't remember. I think that might be Ardiel Poof. It's either him or the guy that's got the tail and the beard. Um, but yeah, I know too much about this shit, obviously, because so what was I saying? Okay, Depa Billaba on the council, right? Mace Windu on the council. Depa Billaba was Mace Windu's apprentice, and then I don't know who Mace Windu's master was. I don't think it was Yoda because I know Yoda trained Dooku, so it was the lineage of Yoda is Dooku. Dooku trained Qui Gon. Qui Gon trained Obi Wan, and Obi Wan trained Anakin, and then Anakin trained Ahsoka. But basically, like um, Yoda is. I don't know if Yoda's seen as a failure because like Dooku is his fault, or if Dooku is just like because initially, whenever Dooku is set, like they accuse Dooku of the assassination attempt, or Padme does. Kia D. Mundi was like, "There's no fucking way. He's a political idealist, and he's not a murderer." And then they find out, like Yoda finds out firsthand, obviously at the end of Attack of the Clones, that he is a dark sider, right? So, like, I don't know if the perception in the rest of the Jedi Order is that Yoda kind of fumbled the bag on that one. Who knows? But yeah, Dooku turns to the dark side. Qui Gon Jinn dies, and then Obi Wan is definitely like the ideal Jedi. Like he is what the Jedi stand for. He's very much not like an aggressor for the most part. I mean, like he tries to negotiate until he can't. Um, the majority of the time, obviously, the Clone Wars changes him a little bit, but then like he kind of does that. He steps away from everything in between Return of the Sith or Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Like, but he's just in exile. Like they're all fucking all the Jedi are dead. So oh look, there's the little ETs. I think it's between him and Bail Organa, and I I know that like the whole manipulation thing that was going on in the background is like the money and all that shit. It's basically like our politics now. Again, it's like in the background, these senators and delegates are getting bought off for their votes, and so they elect Palpatine in the end. I mean, he's got a point. What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, but like, here's the thing, Yoda, is this kid is strong in the Force regardless of whether or not you guys train him. And so your thought shouldn't be, let's not train this kid. Let's avoid like teaching him anything. It should be, let's teach him the right thing. We should be like taking him in with open arms. But they outright reject him. And that is probably like the first thing that he feels, is that he is rejected by the council, and then like later on he'll probably like come to realize like they only trained him out of Qui-Gon's dying wish. And that's not a good grounds for a relationship. The Jedi themselves fucked it up so bad because of their dogma of like, he's too old to be trained, and we can't um basically like what's the word that I'm looking for here? It's we can't indoctrinate him the same way as we can a fucking infant or a toddler, you know, which is bonkers because you can still indoctrinate him. He's 8 or 9. He's super susceptible to like the belief systems of, especially somebody he sees as like saviors of the galaxy. He held the Jedi in high regard when he was a boy, and so like he's already like, am I supposed to be a Jedi? He's excited about it, but then it puts a bad taste in his mouth whenever they are like, we can't train you because you're too old. It would have changed a little bit of his trust in the Jedi. It would have been a lot more strong, um, had they have accepted him. Props for Obi-Wan for sticking up for himself, but you're a dick, Yoda. So there's like the whole thing about them being involved in politics is another big no-no for them. Like that itself is probably against the code too, but they're like, again, this is my point with the whole cognitive dissonance that they have, is that the code forbids Qui-Gon from taking on two apprentices. And they're also worried that Anakin's too old. But they're involved in the politics of the galaxy. So which one is it? Like, are you supposed to follow the code to a T? Or are you allowed to bend it a little bit for your own gain? Because that's what you're doing with politics, is you're steeped in it for your own gain. Also, they had to know like Qui Gon. He would have left the Jedi Order if he'd have been alive. Like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Excuse me for a second. I'll get back to this, but like them sending Qui Gon and Obi Wan alone as a master and an apprentice to Naboo to fight a Sith. Like, even though they don't believe it's a Sith right off the bat, they should fucking like them being it's impossible for the Sith to have returned. Like, okay, but what if they did? Hope for the best, expect like or hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You know, and they should be like on red alert on the whole like, oh shit, if this guy's a Force user and he's using the dark side of the Force, then like we should assume the worst, you know, and then like send two Jedi Masters. I personally believe that if Mace Windu would have gone and the two of them fought against Maul, Qui Gon and Mace, like Maul would have not stood a chance, and he probably would have definitely like died instead of just being cut in half. Which like that is pretty metal that he survived on his singular hatred for Obi-Wan. Like the dark side is a path to abilities that many would consider unnatural. Um, to quote the great Palps. But what was I saying? Fuck. I did have a point about something else. Oh yeah, Qui Gon would have left the Jedi Order and trained Obi Wan. Anyways, he had been asked to be a council member. Um, I think at least once, maybe more than once, and he had refused because he didn't like that the fact that they were involved in the politics of the Republic, and so he was just like, I'm not gonna contribute to more of this shit. So no, I'm not gonna join the council. Which like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Where it's like if he was on the council, he might have been able to kind of solicit a little bit of change because then his voice would have been heard. They would have taken him a little bit more seriously. But it's also like how much would they hear him? Because you don't really have a lot of people that are outside the box thinkers on the council, and so his vote would probably just be overruled all the time. I think the only other two people I feel like would have been um, receptive are Plo Koon and Yaddle, because I think Yaddle steps down after Qui Gon leaves, or I don't remember exactly why she steps down. I think it might have been after Qui Gon's death, possibly. I don't remember, but yeah, there. It's just the Jedi truly were their own worst enemy. They become super complacent, and that's I feel directly attributable to Yoda having been on the High Council as the Grand Master for far too long. He became complacent, and it was ultimately their undoing. He is quite honestly like him going into um, hiding and like being essentially like banning himself or banishing himself. Like that makes a lot of sense. I think he kind of got a little bit of retrospect on the whole situation because he knew he fucked up. I don't know if Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon knew, but like their faces there kind of like they kind of look like they knew. Anakin was like, "What the fuck?" For sure. That's nuts. But it's also a very smart political move. Feeding into his ego. I mean, I get it. The perception from Boss Nass is that the human Nabooans, think that they're better than the Gungans. That's what he feels like they think. And so her saying like, "No, I don't think we're better than you," is he's like, "Oh, well then, cool." Um, Part of me like feels bad for Ray Park, the guy that does the physical acting for Darth Maul, because like his voice isn't Maul's voice ever. Because you have, I think it's Joseph Serafinowicz or Paul Serafinowicz. I can't remember. I know his last name is Serafinowicz because it's a very unique last name. Peter Serafinowicz. Um, he does the voice of Darth Maul, but Bray Park does the physical acting for him. And then in the Clone Wars animated series, Sam Witwer is the voice, and then Ray Park comes back to do the physical acting in the little cameo at the end of Solo, and it's also Sam Witwer again. And Sam Witwer is a great voice actor because not only is he Maul, he also does the Emperor in the Rebels TV show, which is not and Maul in the Rebels TV show as well because he is around for that too. I'm glad that Maul came back. I think a lot of people were upset uh, with him dying off in this because like George Lucas has done that multiple times, at least twice, with Boba Fett being introduced in The Empire Strikes Back, and people are like, "Oh, that guy looks so cool. He looks like a badass," and then he just gets killed in the next movie at the very beginning, and people are like, "But what about him? Like, he's such a cool looking character. We want to know about him." And same thing with Maul is like he is a cool looking character. He kills Qui Gon and then immediately dies. There's like no development, but it kind of gets made better for both actually for Boba Fett and Maul in the Clone Wars show because there's a couple of story arcs with Boba Fett involved. I think there was actually supposed to be another one um, in the last season, but it never. It was because the Disney acquisition that uh, he there was like a arc at the very end. He had arcs earlier on. He had like a story where he wanted to get revenge against Mace Windu, and there was one, or I think it might have been in the same one, and then he like showed up once more. But there was supposed to be an arc with like the whole, hey, why has he got a dent in his helmet? And it was because Cad Bane was essentially like his role model, the guy that like he taught him, and there was like a face off between him and Cad Bane. That it did end up showing up, like that face off ended up happening in the Boba Fett series, which was a disappointing. That was kind of upsetting to see happen because like in the Mandalorian season two, whenever he shows up, I think it was season two. But whenever he shows up and like beats the shit out of all the stormtroopers before getting his armor and then after getting his armor, cool as fuck. And then they go to that one. Um, he's flying Din Djarin around in Slave One, um, and he just kind of is looking cool. He's not really doing much, unfortunately. He takes a back seat for the rest of it, but like there was that one scene that kind of we got to see it happen in live action, I guess. But in the Boba Fett Book of Boba Fett miniseries, it was like the standoff between him and Cad Bane happened, but again, riddled with problems. Disney Star Wars is kind of lackluster most of the time. Um, I think that the reason why the Book of Boba Fett and then season 3 of The Mandalorian kind of sucked comparatively to the rest of it is because of the politics within the corporation of Disney. Like mostly, I blame how heavily involved Kathleen Kennedy was. I feel like she is the reason why a lot of this shit kind of creatively doesn't happen. Because like uh, Dave Filoni, the guy that was the showrunner for the Clone Wars and then Rebels, like he's a very he's basically George Lucas's prodigy, right? And then John Favreau, who, if you didn't know, voiced a very prominent character in the Clone Wars show, Pre Vizsla. Um, I think he likes the Mandalorian stuff a lot, and I think that's why he was kind of also co in charge of the Mandalorian show. But I think that a lot of their creative influence in the show got pushed aside in the last season. And in the Book of Boba Fett, that series I feel like got the whole like they put Din Djarin in it too much. And then like in the last season of The Mandalorian, there was more of other characters than the Mandalorian. It was like, well, I mean, there was Bo-Katan, but like Bo-Katan, another character from the Clone Wars show, um, and the Rebels, um, which is super interesting. That in the animated series, both of them, and now with the Mandalorian show, the Book of Boba Fett, like the Mandalorians are such a, I feel like a pivotal part of Star Wars. Like a lot of the lore that Star Wars has in live action and in the animated series has to do with the Mandalorians, but there's almost none. Like the fact that there are two prominent characters that just like visually that in Jango and Boba Fett, which are like, if you want to get technical about it, they're the same character. They're the same guy because Boba Fett's a clone. Um, but yeah, like although they're very different characters. That was just a little joke about them being the same person because he's a clone. Anyways, yeah, he's such a important or the Mandalorian story stuff is so important to Star Wars, like that being what a lot of Star Wars is Mandalorian stuff. And Maul too. Maul controls the Mandalorians at one point. Anyways, god damn it, Ray Park, you look so hot. Also, John Williams, Duel of the Fate. I haven't really. I have the volume real low on the TV, so I haven't really been paying attention to a lot of the score. But Duel of the Fates, an iconic piece of music. I don't know, like why the Separatists didn't just disable those ships. You know, Ooh. Props to you and McGregor and Liam Neeson for again earlier on in the movie. Oh God, the faint. Damn, pretty cool. That's like the whole like them in tune thing, but behind the scenes of them like doing the actual training to be lightsaber duelists, what a great effort for them to actually want to be doing that kind of work, you know, because it does have an authenticity to it where it's not somebody else. Definitely, I think there are probably definitely like some uh, instances where they need a stunt double, but like the action is them for the most part in the duels, which is great. I saw that Gungan fist fighting. Look, he's fist fighting that fucking droid, man. And then Jar Jar just accidentally himself into winning fights. Also, the balls on these pilots, man. Like, I think in the lore, like the N1 starfighter is very much a ceremonial uh, ship that is just for like escorting missions and like air shows and shit like that. And it is a capable fighter because it's fast, but like doesn't have great shields and like I don't think the firepower is particularly great. So the lasers, uh, the green Tabana gas is uh, what do you call it? Expensive. So blasters work off of this thing called Tabana gas, and I think I might be getting that wrong, but there's like different qualities of it. So like your green, which is what the Empire uses with their star destroyers, right? And also on the Death Star's turbo lasers, like the it's green, right? And then the Rebel Alliance and then the Trade Federation in this instance is using red, and that's like the cheapest you can get. And then like in the Clone Wars, so in Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, and in Revenge of the Sith, the clones use blue, which is like explained to be ionically charged. So it's specifically its use set is for um, anti-electronics, kind of. So they're fighting against droids, so they're going to use the blue shit that's ionically charged against mechanical robots. the standoff. I love how Qui-Gon is doing a little battle meditation, and then Maul is walking around and kind of like a predator, sort of. And then you got Obi-Wan in the back who's just like he's probably a little anxious and a little eager to get back into the fight. He's like, oh shit, my master is by himself, and I need to get back in it and help him take him on. And then, yeah. And then there you go. Jar Jar's accidentally himself into winning again. Because, yeah, you take down a tank, or probably more than one, to be honest with you. You know what? Jar Jar's not the only one that accidentally himself into winning. I think Anakin just did right there, too. I don't know why he doesn't do the fucking force sprint, man. He almost made it, too. And the score cut out. There's a little bit of that chanting in the background that's associated with Maul. As soon as he gets hit, the score comes back in. That's great. I love how that's the yeah the distraction. Then she knows that there's guns there, and then bam. Now they can capture the viceroy. All of the rest of the droids went and chased after the body double. So the tables have turned on our like C plot, right? And I think this is the A plot right here. And Obi-Wan is pissed. Yup. Gains the upper hand. Mm. Now he's on the back foot again. Maul, you shouldn't play with your food. And there goes Anakin, accidentally himself into winning. I think that's the same guy that flew the space yacht. Yep. Uh, so I mean, like, is it four things going on? There's like a D plot, but like the space battle and the ground battle are kind of connected. So I think they're like I don't know, the B plot together, and then, yep. That's a lot of blood, by the way. I think this movie's rated PG, but it shouldn't be. Because you got that. The dude's literally cut in half and his corpse bounces off the wall. And this is Obi-Wan being the high ground. He is the high ground. Yeah, I mean, this is all pretty much like, all right, it's over. I guess you kind of gotta set up the next series of events. But part of me think that is he knows he's the chosen one because he can feel it. But I don't know. I don't know. I think the Jedi collectively might need a little bit more of it. I love seeing characters that like just they get a lot more screen time later on, like Evan Peel, Stacey Ten, not so much. A little bit in the Clone Wars, but Evan Peel gets a good amount of screen time in the Clone Wars show. Stacey Ten fights in the duel against Palpatine, I believe, with Kit Fisto and oh man, I think there's one more other than Mace Windu because there's four of them. The Apprentice, because there's the master right there, and it's all also the rule of two isn't necessarily always a thing because at this point, I believe uh, Plagueis was still alive, and there's three of them. Like, and right at this point as well, um, Palpatine was working on Dooku, so there would have been four. I think that also kind of goes to show like how much of the Jedi's hubris was negative. It negatively impacted them. You know. And it's over. So I'm gonna. I think I wanted to talk about something at the end of this, just a little bit. Like, I'm gonna let the credits roll here, but yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. These movies are still you're able to follow them as far as like what's going on by themselves, but the fact that there's a lot of extra information, like background information, story wise. I don't. I'm not entirely sure what I just did there with my microphone. I hope I didn't mute it, but like I was saying, there's a lot of information that is in the background of it story wise, and a lot of that extra information kind of it to me enriches a lot of it. It's like the whole stuff with Dooku in the background of this, and um, Plagueis, and how Palpatine was manipulating things like on the financial side with basically getting the Trade Federation to push their necks on one of these worlds to kind of sow that division a little bit and then drive a wedge between Padme and Chancellor Valorum to he like explicitly you watched it happen where he manipulated her and essentially coerced her into passing that or like suggesting that vote, and that obviously caused there to be a vacancy in that spot, and he was again manipulating things financially that uh, made it to where it was more favorable for him to become the chancellor. I think it would have it had it gone any other way where he wasn't like as good as a master manipulator as he was. And before I forget, Plagueis was immune, which is like he was on the banking clan, which is essentially like our Federal Reserve, and he was fucking complicit in that whole like getting Palpatine to become the Chancellor thing. Um, so interesting thing. I heard this so long ago, and I can't remember where, but I want to say my brother-in-law actually brought this up to me, but it was a very long time ago. It kind of goes along the lines of somebody wanted to rewrite the prequels, and their take on it was very interesting. I think it was like essentially um, the Duel of the Fates happens a little bit different, where it's Dooku involved as well, I think, and it happens within the palace itself instead of you know in the whole like laser beam corridor. Um, but whenever Palpatine meets Anakin, he's always with Obi-Wan, and he had never interacted with Obi-Wan. Excuse me. He had never interacted with Obi-Wan prior to his meeting of the both of them, and so he meets both of them at the same time, and he can feel that he's like one of them is very strong in the Force, stronger than Yoda, and Palpatine at this point, like in this guy's alternate version of things, um, I really wish I knew where this came from so I could credit them, but like he had interacted with Yoda and he could feel how powerful Yoda was, right? And so whenever he interacts with um, Obi Wan and Anakin, he feels how powerful the two of them together are, and immediately assumes that it's um, Obi Wan. So his initial assumption is that Obi Wan is the chosen one, and so he starts trying to groom Obi Wan to become his apprentice instead of Anakin, and like essentially later on, um, as Anakin grows up, he kind of becomes a little bit jealous of this fact that he's Obi Wan's getting a lot of attention from the Chancellor. I'm not entirely sure why. Like Anakin wants his approval, but like the guy basically lays out that every single time that um, Anakin or Palpatine interacts with Anakin and Obi Wan, they are together, and so it's not until like way later that he discovers it. But Anakin being jealous is a contributing factor to him turning to the dark side, because like Yoda says, the dark side is the quick and easy path, right? And so he wants to basically become better than Obi-Wan. And I think it also has to do with the fact that the Jedi as a whole, like as an institution, holds Obi-Wan as the perfect Jedi. Again, this is in the rewrite, quote unquote, of this guy. So like Obi-Wan is seen as the hero, and Anakin continually is jealous, and eventually that's what causes him to turn to the dark side to use the quick and easy path to gain power, and then something or other happens, and that gets the attention of Sidious, and then Sidious is like, "Oh, I've been looking at this all wrong the whole time. It's Anakin that I should be looking at as who I should be looking for as my new apprentice." And then he kind of like uh, reinforces the idea that the Jedi don't appreciate him, and Anakin, having already been jealous for as long as he has been, is like, yeah, you're right. And then eventually he like comes to him and he's like, hey, yada yada yada, join me. And Anakin's just like, of course. And like the relationship with Padme is, I believe, was different as well. Like, I don't know if it was necessarily he was like in love with her and then he like, or if he was just having a fling with her or whatever, if it was like a lustful thing and he just happened to get her pregnant. But anyways, I thought that was an interesting thing. But yeah, there you go. That was the Phantom Menace. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I would love to continue doing it. I'm planning on doing the rest of the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. But before I get to Revenge of the Sith, I was thinking about doing each one of the Clone Wars show um, episodes individually as little quick episodes. I know this one, it being a commentary track, is long already, and me talking a little bit before is long, so this track is already fucking 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. So hopefully in the future I'll do more of these. All right, thank you. Bye.